Hey everyone, it's Elliot back with another episode of reading a book in every genre. If this is your first time on this channel, I am Elliot and I'm a writer and content creator and I'm trying to read more. So I decided to start this little project for myself where I read a book in every genre, every subgenre, and that way, at the end of it, I would know what type of books I prefer. I don't know, it's kind of a crazy idea. It's still in its very early stages. So the first category that I am exploring is the fantasy genre, and today I will be reading a book from the superheroes fantasy genre, and the book representing that is Soon I Will Be Invincible by Austin Grossman. I haven't heard of this book until I started doing research on superhero fantasy. As a category, there is a lot and not a lot to say about it because it really depends on how you define a genre. Superheroes, they kind of live in three separate genres in my mind. They live in the crime genre, they live in the fantasy genre, and they live in the sci-fi genre. In terms of superheroes in the crime genre, you have the Batmans and you have the Punishers. In terms of it being a fantasy, you have the Thors and you have the Aquaman. And in terms of it being sci-fi, you have the Superman, you have the X-Men with their like spaceships and stuff like that. And even when you have all these genres, they kind of overlap because Thor is an interesting one where it's kind of sci-fi and kind of fantasy at the same time. So that's when stories become kind of interesting, is when it sort of blends between these types of genres. And that leads to the question, is a superhero fantasy really a type of genre, or is it just like a superhero is just a character in a type of genre? So that's something to think about, and I am pretty excited to start reading this book, Soon I Will Be Invincible by Austin Grossman. It looks like a really fun book. It even has a blurb from Douglas Copeland, winning, smart, and funny. It's terrific. Well, if Douglas Copeland says so. It seems like such a lazy blurb, doesn't it? Either way, I'll check back with you around the midway point when I'll give you my thoughts on how I feel about the story so far. Check back with you in a moment. Oh yeah! I am a superhero. No! Jeez. Okay. Ugh. Not actually a superhero, nor am I a Mexican, what is it called, Nacho Libre wrestlers. They're not called that. Sorry if I offended anybody. Anyways, back to the point. I am still reading I Will Soon Be Invincible by Austin Grossman. I'm about halfway through, and I just wanted to catch up and talk about my impression of the book so far. This book is reminding me a lot of like a team superhero plotline, sort of like Watchmen, sort of like the X-Men. It's split up into two different characters' point of view, both told in first person, which is a very interesting way to tell a superhero story in my opinion. The first storyline focuses on the evil villain, Dr. Impossible, as he is captured and then he escaped from prison, and now he's trying to re-establish himself as this evil mastermind that he is. The second storyline follows this new superhero, Fatale, as she joins this famous superhero group called the Champions. There's quite a bit of relationship drama, which I wasn't expecting when I picked up this book, even though it very much looks like a young adult novel, and it is a young adult novel. There's also a few superhero storyline tropes about like how one superhero sacrificed themselves to save everybody, or another superhero has gone missing and it's a mystery and no one is sure where this famous superhero has gone. Yeah, it has all the classic elements of a traditional superhero story, but what's refreshing about this book is that it's a book, it's a novel, and I've been so used to consuming superhero stories as rather a graphic novel like The Watchmen or a movie like The Watchmen. And yeah, I believe I mentioned this in the American Gods book discussion that I've been getting really exhausted by all the different superhero movies that's been coming out, all the Marvel Avenger movies, even the DC movies. I haven't even seen Aquaman or Wonder Woman or any of that stuff yet. It's just like, I felt I needed a break from it. And this is actually a really nice way to get back into the superhero storylines that I do really enjoy superhero stories, and this is a nice way back. However, I'm reading this book through the lens of fantasy. It's a superhero fantasy. That's the subgenre I put this book in. And so the question is, are there any fantasy elements to it? Yes, there is one notable fantasy element, and that involves a character in the story, which is a member of the superhero group. She's a superhero herself, and she's a fairy. Her name is Elfin, and she references, to me, this is like Shakespeare Midsummer Night's Dream reference, Titania and Oberon, which are the king and queen of fairies. So far, that is the only prominent fantasy element that I've noticed. Anyways, yeah, I'm actually really enjoying this book. This would not be a book I would have picked up and read on my own accord without doing this project, so I'm very happy I found it. It's a nice, like I said, a refreshing take on superhero stories, and yeah, I'm gonna finish it and I'll let you guys know how I think once I'm done reading the whole entire story. Check back with you in a bit. Welcome back to my epic finale of my book experience. I believe the theme of this book is acceptance. There are two main characters, like I mentioned before. Fatale, who's this cyborg that joins this superhero team to save and protect the world. Meanwhile, there's the evil villain, Dr. Impossible, who escaped from prison to try to rebuild his empire. So how does acceptance fit in? For Fatale, it's kind of clear. She's joining this new group, she's meeting new teammates, she wants to make a difference, she wants to be an asset, and as she begins to work with each individual teammate, she begins to learn about their quality. Meanwhile, with Dr. Impossible, his relation with acceptance goes a little deeper. It goes back to his origin story, back when he was a young man. He's in school, I believe, like college or high school, and he's super smart. He's smarter than everybody else. So he gets outcasted for that reason. However, there's this other boy, Jason, who's also super smart. His rival in every way, except he is well liked by everybody. He's super popular, and he even ends up stealing the girl that he wants. Jason ends up growing up to be Dr. Impossible's arch nemesis, Corefire, which during the story he kind of disappears. No one knows where he went. So when Dr. Impossible escaped from prison, he was kind of bummed out that he wasn't the one to defeat Corefire. By defeating Corefire, that would be his closure. That would be the way he gets back at the world for not accepting him. We want to be accepted, and we also want to be special in some way. We want to be super strong, we want to be super smart, we want to be charismatic, but by having those traits, by having those superpowers, we sometimes have to sacrifice something, and that something can be acceptance. It is overall a kind of a cliche superhero story. If you're looking for something super unique, this is not it. But not wanting to stray too far away from the theme of this video, which is talking about this book's subgenre, superhero fantasy. And the deeper I got into the story, the more I realized that, yeah, there were some fantasy elements to it. Here's what I discovered. Like good and evil, there was another battle going on. This one between science and magic. So there are many ways you could become a superhero. You could go through a genetic mutation, or you could be rebuilt as a robot, something like that, something science-y. Or you could become a superhero through magic, or the supernatural, if you will. In total, I feel like there's two main characters that are magic based, and they weren't really foreground main characters, they just sort of acted in the back. So yes, I do think superhero fantasy is a subgenre. I don't know if this book is the best representation of that though. I think this book leans more towards superhero sci-fi than it does superhero fantasy. But I wouldn't have discovered it any other way, so there you go. My main criticism, that one of the characters is supposed to be like the smartest person in the world, but he doesn't talk like the smartest person in the world. You know what I mean? This book is told in first person, and because it's told in first person, there's that direct connection to it. I felt like if it was told in the third person, I would have that bit of distance, and I could have, okay, he's the smartest person in the world. I'm not hearing it through his voice, but since I was hearing it from his voice, I'm like, this guy is not the smartest. This is not what the smartest person in the world sounds like. If you're into the Watchmen, the X-Men, or the Avengers, then I recommend you check out this book, just to give it a shot. That is all I have to say for now. If you're interested in following along with me as I try to read a book in every subgenre of every genre, then like and subscribe, and I will appreciate it the most. I'm Elliot Chan. I'll talk to you guys later.